Where's the button? Here it is. Oh yeah, I should redo this intro. Okay, now that the laziness is out of the way, hi, hello, we're on the computer this time around. In this video, we are going to be going over the EOS M line of cameras. Now, some notes about the EOS M line. They only ever made APS-C cameras. This was Canon's first entry into the mirrorless side of cameras. And so there was a lot of stuff to work out. There was not a full frame Canon mirrorless until the R series came around. Because of this, the EOS M line is kind of it's always kind of been taking a step back. You know, a lot of people had stuck with Canon EF stuff, especially since they were still launching DSLRs alongside all these EOS M cameras. In fact, some of these cameras are even, the sensor and everything inside is even identical to a DSLR in some cases, especially the M6 Mark II. But yeah, so it's kind of an interesting, weird system. There wasn't a crazy amount of glass that was made for the EFM series. Mostly just because, again, it was all APS-C stuff. There was no full frames. It was a whole thing. Originally, Canon had said, you know, towards the end here, that they had said that EOS M would not be going anywhere. And then not too long after that, the R mount came out and the R series cameras came out, and suddenly EOS M or EFM was discontinued. And so the EOS M cameras are kind of in this weird spot at the moment where, you know, they're capable cameras. But you cannot put any R series glass on them. Now you can still put EFM series glass on them, and you can get a adapter to put EF glass onto these cameras. So if you still have a lot of EF glass and you want to get one of these mirrorless cameras, you can adapt it to that. So yeah, let's go ahead and just go down the list of the different cameras here, and then we will go more in depth into each one. Starting off in June of 2012 with the Canon EOS M. This was Canon's first mirrorless camera and possibly their smallest mirrorless camera. I'm not entirely sure about that fact, but one of these M series cameras is definitely one of the smallest mirrorless camera Canon has ever made. August of 2013, we got the EOS M2. February 2015, we got the Canon EOS M3. October of 2015, we got the Canon EOS M10. Followed by September of 2016 with the EOS M5. After that, February of 2017 was the M6. August 2017 was the M100. February 2018 was the M50. This is the one that a lot of people liked, as well as the M6. After that, in September of 2019, we have the M6 Mark II, which might be the most powerful one that had come out for the EOS M series. I believe it was also, the internals were pretty much also identical to the 90D. Canon EOS M200 in September of 2019, same as the M6 Mark II, and then October 2020 was the EOS M50 Mark II, and after that they discontinued the line. So I'm going to move this aside as a reference for me. Okay. Alrighty. So, For all of these, yes, for all of these, we are here on the digital photography review site, and I am just using this to go over all the different specs for the ones I could find spec pages for. Some of the other ones up along here are just on the review thing, on the review sheet, whatever you want to call it, review page, I guess. As I couldn't find a spec page for it, even though it's probably there and I just couldn't find it. So here we go. Starting off with the first one, the Canon EOS M. Had an MSRP of $800 with a 22mm lens, or some of these other options here. Body style was the rangefinder style mirrorless, this very compact looking thing. Is there a picture here? It does not. There does not seem to be a picture here. Feel free to look it up if you wish. Tiny little thing. Had a max resolution of 5184 by 3456. Had some other resolutions here. It is an 18 megapixel APS-C sensor. Use the Digic 5 processor, ISO of 100 to 12,800, expandable with boost up to 25,600. White balance preset 6. Got some other stuff. Uncompressed format is RAW, of course. Got, other stuff here. Focal length multiplier, 1.6x standard for APS-C. Have the autofocus information here. Going down the line. Continuous drive, is that? I believe that's maximum FPS. I believe so. Seems to have a max FPS of 4.3 pictures per second. Video features here, we had 1080p at 30 FPS, 25 FPS, and 24 FPS, 720 at 60 and 50 FPS, and then 640 by 480 at 50 and 60 FPS. One could hope or think that, for some of these older resolutions, they could have had more FPS on there for slow motion stuff. However, there's probably some sort of bitrate limitation on that camera. Storage types, you have SD, SDHC, and SDXC. Then we have the connections here, have the LPE12 battery, etc., etc. Moving on here, we have the M2, which, as far as my understanding goes, was mostly just an updated version of that camera. Let's see here. This is one I could not find a proper spec sheet for. As far as I know, it was basically just an updated version of the EOS M and still had a lot of the same features, possibly be it slightly more upgraded. Here we have the Canon M3. I believe this one was the first mirrorless camera Canon created to hit 24 megapixels. Let's see here. Same size sensor, APS-C. This one uses a Digic 6. ISO is pretty much the same here, from what I can tell. Here is your autofocusing features. Lens mount, EFM. Same thing. Tilting. Articulated LCD. Okay, so it looks like the M3 had an articulated LCD. I cannot remember if the M1 and 2 had fixed LCDs. It looks like they did. Looks like they did have fixed LCDs. So you get that articulating screen with the M3. Continuous drive max FPS is 4.2 versus the 4.3 of the last camera shouldn't really be a noticeable difference, but I suppose you would notice a difference if you were holding down that trigger until you hit the buffer. 1080p video, 30, 25, 24 FPS, 720. This is all pretty much the same here as it seems. Same situation with the SD card slots. I believe maybe only most of these use a single SD card slot. And then here we have the LPE17 battery. So this was really the first upgrade to the EOS M camera. The M2 is basically just an EOS M Mark II. Instead of more so being its own camera, it was just a refreshed version, as far as I'm aware. The M3 is legitimately a different camera, and therefore it makes sense that it has its own name. Let's see here, Canon EOS M10. Okay, this one MSRP'd at $600, and I believe this was more so created so that there was an 18 megapixel option for them to sell new, so that they could stop with the M2, which again was just a refreshed version of the EOS M. So now we have, let's see here, when did these two come out? The M3 was February of 2015, and the M10 was October of 2015. So yes, by this point they probably stopped producing the M2 and started producing the M10 alongside the M3, so that you had an 18 and 24 megapixel version of these small M cameras. 18 megapixels, as we said, same APS-C size sensor. This one with a Digic 6 processor. ISO is pretty much the same again. Here's our autofocusing options. Canon EFM, excuse me. This one we had a tilting screen. Was that the same with the M3 tilting screen? Probably. Provided I can find it. Yes, tilting screen. Okay. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is looking roughly the same. 4.6 FPS. So I believe this is the fastest continuous shooting EOS M camera up to this point. I think the M3 was 4.2 FPS. The M10, apologies. The M10 is 4.6 FPS. Albeit you do lose some megapixels. Video, same story here. Same resolution, same frames per second. SD card, same situation here. So on and so forth. We are still using the LPE12 battery for the M10 versus the M3 that uses that LPE17. Moving over here to the Canon M5. Let me see if I can find a better page here. Alright, according to Google here, we're just going to go off of this. It is once again a 24 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor. This one is using the Digic 7 processor. So I believe this one was, let's see, when did this come out? The M5 was September of 2016 was for the M5. So this would be replacing the M3. Interesting how there's no M4. There is no M4. They went from M3 to M5. So this camera is replacing the M3. Same number of megapixels, same APS-C sized sensor, Digic 7 processor, dual pixel autofocus, etc., etc. It offers up to 7 FPS of continuous shooting, 9 FPS with focus locked. Let's see here. This one can do full HD up to 60p, right? So that's 1080 60. Not quite sure what the rest of the options are. ISO, again, is pretty much the same here. LCD, a little bit bigger, 3.15 inches instead of 3 inches. Tilting touchscreen. Viewfinder, 2.63 million dot EVF, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which I think at least most of these cameras had, and etc., etc. So overall, a marginal upgrade from the M3. Moving on to February of 2017, we get the M6. And the M6 here is replacing the M5 from the year before. Taking a look here, once again, 24 megapixels. I am not sure which Digic processor it is using. We once again have that dual pixel autofocus, 7 FPS continuous shooting, 9 FPS with the focus locked. One could kind of consider this to be like an M5 Mark II or so. Yeah, debatable if that's what you would want to call it. Again, this is all just my opinion, and honestly, I haven't put in a crazy amount of research. I've put in enough research to be dangerous, but I don't know everything by any means. So yeah, it's another marginal upgrade over the M5. We are going to move on here to August 2017 with the M100. The M100 here, again, $600. And we have gone from 18 megapixels. I believe this was supposed to be the budget-oriented one. So we have gone from 18 megapixels with the M10 now to 24 megapixels with the M100. See here, a lot. Image ratio, 3:2, normal. Again, APS-C. We are up to the Digic 7 processor here. Different autofocus modes and features. 3-inch tilting screen per usual. I believe it was touchscreen, but I could be wrong. Where is the ISO? ISO 100. Yep, again, same thing here. The EOS M cameras definitely had slow progression, but they had progression. Continuous drive, 6.1 FPS, not as good as the 7 FPS from the M6, but definitely a lot better than the M10. Video modes here, we get 1080p at 60, as well as 30 and 24, and then we also have 720p at 60 FPS. Let's see here. With this one, we finally get UHS 1 compatibility, it seems. I don't know if it was actually able to use that speed, but at least the cards were compatible. So yes, we are here on the LPE12 battery once again. Moving on here, we have the Canon EOS M50 from February of 2018. This camera got a lot of love in the community. And we're gonna see why here. The M50 really was a nice jump in performance when it comes to the overall usability of the Canon M series. Of the Canon M series cameras. M50 is really when they started fleshing these things out and figuring out what was good in a mirrorless camera. Looks like $780 MSRP. 6,000 by 400 max resolution. You've got different ratios here. 24 megapixels APS-C, CMOS sensor, Digic 8 processor. So we now have a new Digic processor. Max ISO, here we go, is now native 100 to 25,600, expandable up to 51,200. So we have I want to say, if I remember correctly, we have doubled the native ISO and we have doubled the expanded ISO. Continuing on here, we have, instead of a tilting screen, now we have a fully articulated screen. Different autofocusing modes here. Let's see. Maximum shutter speed, 1/4000 of a second. I just noticed I haven't been going over the shutter speed. I apologize. You can either go to the website itself and sift through the settings. You can pause the video, look through them, or you can go back through the video and pause them as I've been scrolling through to take a look at everything yourself. You know, we got some other stuff here, and then here's a real big one. The video modes. You get 4K 24 FPS with this camera. This is, I believe, the first EOS M camera to give you 4K recording capabilities, as well as your standard 1080p, 60, 30, 24 FPS, as well as 720, 120 FPS if you wanted to do some slow motion work. Same story here, UH1 or UHS1 SD card compatible. And then the other goodies here. This one camera here, the M50, was the camera that gave this Canon M series the jump it needed. And the next camera we're about to go over, the M6 Mark II, solidified that even more. This is when these cameras started getting good. Not that they weren't good before, but they were becoming legitimate options compared to the DSLRs that were releasing alongside these. Here we go. M6 Mark II, max resolution 6960 by 60 by 4640. Have the different ratios here. 33 megapixels. Again, pretty much identical internals to the 90D. Once again, APS-C sensor, Digic 8 processor. ISO is the same as the M50. Again, all of your autofocus settings here. Going down the line. This one does have a tilting screen. Doesn't have the same description as articulating screen. Don't know if there's an actual difference there. But it is just something that I'm noticing here. Going down the line, 14 FPS continuous shooting. 14 FPS. What was the M50 here? What was it? 10? 10 FPS continuous shooting with the M50. And then 14 FPS continuous shooting with the M6 Mark II with that 33 megapixel sensor. We also, if we go down here to the video modes, we see we have 4K 30 FPS instead of the 4K 24 FPS on the M50. We have 1080p 120 FPS, so that's double the performance of the 1080p video from the M50. Followed by the other modes. I don't see any 720 modes here, so I don't know if that's if 720p recording was a thing. but it was really nice here that you got 4K 30 and 1080 120 for stuff you may want to do. Again, here we have the LPE17 battery, and between the M50 coming out in 2018 and the M6 Mark II coming out in 2019, these were the two cameras that was really getting EOS M popular, really. And then, of course, there were the DSLR versions of those two cameras as well that were still doing great on the Canon EF side of things. But if you were looking for a smaller, more compact body with the same Canon performance, then you would go with those EOS M options. Moving on here to the M200, which I believe was replacing the M100. Again, $600. We're up to 24 megapixels once again. ISO is the same as the M100, I believe. Here's all the different autofocusing options and features. A lot of this is the same. A lot of this is more so just a refresher. Honestly, you could consider calling the EOS M100 and M200 the M3 Mark II and M3 Mark III or whatever. The naming scheme is a little confusing. You only had two cameras that used the Mark II acronym. I feel like they could have done more than that with how similar some of these cameras are. But of course, that's up to everyone's discretion. Now what is nice here is that in, what was it, $600? In a $600 body, you did get 4K 24 FPS. So if you needed 4K, you needed that for whatever reason, you had at least a 24 FPS option, as well as 1080-60 for vlogging or whatever. You had 6.1 FPS of continuous shooting. Jumping over back to the M1 here, it's the same at 6.1 FPS. Then you have, all this other stuff here. Now, this next camera is it. This was the last shebang, the final hurrah for Canon EOS M. That is the Canon EOS M50 Mark II. We can also see here that it was also the EOS Kiss at Mark II. Does that mean that the EOS Kiss camera was the Mark I of the M50? Yes, it did. Okay. Alright. So if you're looking for the DSLR options of the Mark 1 and 2, that would be the Kiss 1 and 2. Going through here, again, 24 megapixels. Is this... I'm not going to say anything yet. Digic 8 processor, same ISO, EFM 1.6. Okay, yes. So this is once again just looks like a marginal upgrade. Again, 10 FPS. 4K 24. Yeah, again, just it looks like it just seems to be a marginal upgrade overall. Yes. Just a marginal upgrade overall for the Mark II. And then this was it. This was it for the M series of cameras. They stopped making them. They shifted over to the R series. The DSLRs were coming to their final days, as well as Canon would slowly continue to release more and more R series cameras to the point in which they would, if they haven't already, then will soon stop producing DSLRs. I think they're still releasing the T7, as well as maybe like one of the 1DX cameras. I'm not entirely sure on that. But at this point, the EOS M series of cameras are done. The EOS M lenses are no longer in production. And now everyone who has bought these M series cameras are just kind of in this rut where, you know, they gotta go find used EFM glass or get the EF adapter and go with some EF lenses, or just sell all of their EFM stuff and move over to the R series. You know, it's just kind of left the EOS M users in this own pocket of lenses and cameras that they're kind of stuck with, or are selling to someone else or some other camera reselling company or whatever. And it's a neat story. The M series of cameras. It was Canon's first attempt at mirrorless. They realized that they could do it better, and so they came out with a new version, the R series, and it just kind of went from there. Thank you guys for sticking with me here. I know this was kind of a longer video, and I know that all I really did here was go over spec sheets off of a website between the different cameras. You know, I just do this as a hobby, right? This isn't like a job for me or anything like that. And so I just wanted this video out there on the internet to exist. I do hope that someone else takes the liberty of doing a much better job here than I did of documenting the history of the EOS M line of cameras. I know at some point someone will, right? It's just when, you know. So yeah, thank you guys for sticking around. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope this informed you about some of these EOS M cameras. Hope this encourages someone else to make a better video than I can. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good one. We will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.